Joining me now on stage are Republican Senator Katie Britt of Alabama and Democratic Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Please give them a warm welcome. Thank you both so much for being here.
I really appreciate you having us.
We appreciate
Hey, it's good
so much. Thank you so much. Please have a seat, both of you. We are thrilled that you could both be here for this Common Ground event. Is that good?
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to be here.
And we're going to get to some policy and politics in a second, but I want to start off by talking about something personal, which is the relationship between the two of you, which is genuine. The two of you met Senator Fetterman during freshman orientation. Tell me about that and why the two of you formed a fast friendship.
I mean, I was struck first that her husband is actually bigger than I am. And I'm like, is that her bodyguard or what's the story behind this? Wes, and it turned out that he lived the dream, my dream. I mean, he played for Alabama, which would have been the equivalent of Penn State for me, and then played in the pros. So I played football too, but not very well. And so that's how that conversation started. And then it really kind of picked up right there and never slowed down, really.
Senator Britt, how has the relationship evolved? Why is it still going strong? Again, it's a personal relationship, but it's a professional one as well. You're trying to get things done on Capitol Hill.
Absolutely. So, and I think that we use the trust and the respect that we have for each other in our friendship to be able to talk about hard things and talk about pathways forward. But our friendship, both anchored there at freshman orientation and with both of our spouses getting to know each other as well, we've taken the time to not just understand our politics or position on something, but to really get to know each other as people. And I think that that's missing so much right now. And I think when you do that, when you ask about each other's kids and you know what's going on, and we've also commiserated over some of our votes and having to miss our children's activities and how do we do this whole thing, and also our frustration with some of the gridlock and the lack of communication and conversation. And so our conversations we have utilized to kind of try to spur something different in the Senate.
One of the things that struck me when I was researching your relationship and your shared policy proposals, Senator Britt, is that you actually visited Senator Fetterman when he was in the hospital. He was struggling with mental health issues, which you've been quite vocal about. Why was that important to you, to take that extra step to actually visit Senator Fetterman? Well,
look, let me tell you something. John has more courage. And the strength that he showed in that moment is something that I hope everyone in America looks to and learns from. And for him to trust me enough to be in that space with him, I will always want to be worthy of that trust. And I know that when we look at what's happening across our country, that there are so many people that are reticent to say, hey, I need some help. And John showed that that is the pathway forward and that treatment works. And I'm just grateful for his example and for his friendship.
Senator Fetterman, what did it mean to you that Senator Britt came to visit you?
Oh, I mean, of course, it made the world. And it just to remind, I mean, I would just remind anybody, for my advice is, it's like makes it virtually impossible to be cruel or unkind to someone if you at least have a relationship or at least know that person. I think it's a good rule that don't say anything on social media about someone that you wouldn't say to someone in person. And social media especially has made that kinds of cruelty or those kinds of comments just a throwaway and easy because it's not really connected. It's almost like a video game. And that's part of the coarsening. And now having relationships, now it's often punished where it's like, that's the enemy because we're on different parties. And that's absurd because that's the way, no matter who's in the majority or in the minority, working together, it's the only way it actually works. And we can't forget that because it gets more and more difficult and things become more polarized.
Well, speaking of working together, I do want to, and you raise the issue of social media, so you take me to my next topic perfectly, which is an area where you have joined forces, youth mental health and social media. You co-authored bipartisan bills, the Stop the Scroll Act and the Kids Off Social Media Act. Senator Britt, tell me about these bills. Why are they important? Why are you teaming up on them?
Yeah, I think if you look at these, John and I approach this along with a number of our colleagues, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as concerned parents. I mean, we see what's happening across our country when it comes to mental health, and we know the impact it's having on our youth. And the more that we learn, the more we feel obligated to make sure that we're protecting the next generation. If you look at the stats themselves, 1 in 3 high school young women last year said she actually considered death by suicide. And then 25% of high school young women in 2023 said they made a plan to take their own life. And then 12% actually attempted death by suicide. When you add in young men, that number is 9%. We know that the rate of depression amongst young people more than doubled during 2011 and 2019, where there was also a coinciding of a rise in social media and using among young people. So John and I thought, what are some simple things that we can do to help warn people, warn parents about those negative effects? And so the Stop the Scroll Act, which John got marked up in the Commerce Committee, I think just last week, so we were really excited about that. That's a big step and pathway forward. We'll do a pop-up screen on anyone, young people's phones, just to say that there are challenging mental health effects. And Kristen, one thing that we did is we know that the Surgeon General and others will actually figure out what that says, but we wanted to make sure that there was a link to help, so that if someone found themselves in an unthinkable situation, that they would be able to click there and hopefully receive the kind of help that would prevent them from doing damage or harm to themselves. And then the Kids Off Social Media Act that we have together, along with Ted Cruz, and you've got Chris Murphy and myself and others. I mean, so a very wide spectrum of individuals, and John as well. It says you can't be on social media before 13, and then it says that we won't be able to use algorithms against our children. Brian Schatz is a member of this coalition as well. And then it says, you know, Eyes on the Board, which is one of John and Ted Cruz's pieces of legislation, that just says if you're at school, you should be at school, and those apps should be disabled. So those, along with a number of others, we have CASA that's been led by Senator Blackburn and Senator Blumenthal that we hope will gain support, and COPPA 2.0. So there's a lot of good things out there, but the point is it's time to do something, Kristen. Doing nothing to me is feckless, and the next generation is paying the price.
Well, Senator Fetterman, pick up on that point. Do you think you have the votes to get this legislation passed? And how much did your own personal experience with social media apps, what you're referencing, impact your desire to see change in this space?
I'm 56. And when I was a kid, the only to see really bad or mean things, you had to see that in a bathroom wall. With social media is the most efficient device ever developed that can deliver it right to your screen. And then there's another one, and then another one. And then if you see one, and then the algorithm will tell you there's 10 more coming. And then if you look at 1 or 2 of them, then there's 20 coming in there. And it creates that. And you can quickly get overwhelmed. And that's become like a friend, or at least a companion for your child. And if you had a friend or a companion showing up in your child's life and spending 3 or 4 hours a day with them, you really want to know and understand who that is spending that time with your child. And it needs to be, maybe safer, and just realize what it really is. And I would encourage everybody, put the phone down or spend less time. I ask, and I'll ask your audience, after you spend an hour on social media, raise your hand if you feel better about your life and the world and everything. Anyone?
No hand. Yeah. I don't see anything.
I've never encountered one, and that's the point. And it's a choice. Don't forget, it's a choice to do that. And one of the best things I've done is I've completely unplugged by that. I produce my messaging, but I don't sit around and when I've made the mistake to do that after I won my election, that's when things really got bad and the depression set in. And protecting that, we did this together, not just as senators, but also as parents, because we have young children too. And if we want it for us, we probably it's the appropriate thing for tools for America's parents.
Yeah, and John and I say we don't have to ask people what it's like to raise kids right now with these devices, and we're living it.
And challenges.
Absolutely. And you think about when we want America to lead, and this is one area where we're not. Other countries have stepped up to the plate, and we continue to kind of walk past it, and the time to do something is now.
Well, it's something that we're going to continue to track really closely because it is so critical, and I think it's one of the biggest issues that parents, that families in general are focused on right now. I do want to turn to another big issue, the war in Iran. Senator Fetterman, you have voted against several Democratic efforts to limit President Trump's war powers in Iran. You've said you don't want to put limits, tie his hands when he's in the middle of waging this conflict. As you both know, a key deadline is coming up. We're bumping up against 60 days, May 1st, since the start of the war. Will you vote to keep U.S. forces engaged in this conflict once it hits that 60-day mark, whereby Congress, by law, does need to weigh in?
I will vote. I will continue to vote. My vote's not going to change. I know it's perhaps the most toxic thing a Democrat can embrace. I've seen, where's Kornacki? I mean, I polled the numbers on the screen. The AP poll this week said that 4% of Democrats support that. And the air is about 3%. So I'm the one, the one left that's in the air. And because for me, it's not controversial as a Democrat, every single member of Congress, and when you have someone out here, ask them too, should we allow Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb? Not every single Democrat in Congress says, yes, absolutely not, absolutely not. So here we are. You don't have to agree in every element of epic fury, but if we all agree that we could never allow them to acquire a nuclear bomb, I don't know why we wouldn't want to empower the president to say, no, make sure that Iran can't become a nuclear power, because if they do become a nuclear power, the prices about gas and the instability and the kinds of attack on Israel can only accelerate, because once they become nuclear, Iran effectively becomes untouchable. And here we are at the cusp. I wouldn't want to work all this work God in and just back away, because politically, yes, entirely, it's absolute toxic for a Democrat to have that view.
Senator Britt, let me ask you, because I've heard from Democrats and some Republicans too who say they want the president to deliver a more fulsome justification of not just the war, but his strategy moving forward. Will you vote to greenlight this war after 60 days?
Yeah, I think what we will see is the administration talk to us about exactly what's going on and what's going to be done.
That.
I do. And I also anticipate, look, we've made significant progress. I mean, you've heard that from the president and from the White House. This should have been done 47 years ago.
I mean, President Obama with Libya. I mean, that carried on for a while. And the dynamic and the conversation was much different back then. And I think at the time, I think that was entirely appropriate. But this is not brand new in the American experience. And a Democratic president done the same thing. And Kamala Harris, when she was running for president as a Democrat, I campaigned for her in late 2024. She said, that's my top danger internationally. We can't ever allow Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb, and I refuse to take the military option off the table. This is not like an extreme view for a Democrat, but it's become an extreme view for Democrats, and I believe a lot of that's driven by, it happens to be coming by deeply, deeply polarizing and our president for Dems.
And I do, I believe we've got to finish the job. I know people are ready for us to conclude that, and I do believe that the White House is focused on making that happen. But look, this is the largest state sponsor of terrorism across the globe. But we look at what they've done. We look at who they embolden, whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis and beyond. We know that puts our troops at risk. It puts our people at risk and our allies at risk. So I do think we will hear in the next week from the administration.
I mean, I think, we all remember President Reagan, tear this wall down. And, the world should effectively turn and say, Iran, tear this war down, relinquish your nuclear ambitions. and hold, all of us should hold them accountable in the world. And when these countries say that's not our war, it's like, well, do you consume oil? Yeah, well, then that's make it your war, too. If a nation, you consume oil, then it's your war, too. We all have a stake in that.
Very, very quickly, and we're almost out of time, but in typical Meet the Press fashion, I have a million more questions. Okay. But do you think a deal is possible? Do you both think it's possible?
I do.
You do?
I hope so. I don't think you can trust Iran by any stretch, but I think that we can certainly find a pathway forward, and I hope that they conclude it soon.
Iran just massacred 30,000 of its young people, just killed them. They just are hanging teenagers, literally.
So is it possible to make a deal with them, do you think?
Of course you can't. You can't trust them. Absolutely not. That's my point. And now, the way we continue to vote against Epic Fury, Iran understands we just have to last 60 days. And so that's, if we could just, we can be, you would talk about common ground, it's our military. We have a goal, disagree on parts, but that should be what I think we should all be unified on.
And Kristen, you can't embolden this enemy. And he brings up a great point. I mean, there were people before that were talking about what was actually happening to Iranian citizens, and now those people have gone quiet. I think we have to realize what is happening there in their country and what they're capable of. So I think there can be absolutely no enrichment, zero pathway for that. I mean, we have to be very strong, but I think this administration can and will be. I mean, look, when Donald Trump speaks, people listen because they know he's going to follow through, and I think that's what we'll see on this.
All right, a little bit of a rapid fire round, if we can. I want to talk about both of your political futures. Senator Fetterman, as you know, there's a lot of speculation.
I have a future.
Yes. Does that mean you're definitely running for office again? Because you haven't said.
Yeah, I have a future.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you because
America needs him. I mean, you think about like his willingness to speak truth in every single situation. Look, he votes with Democrats 90-something% of the time, but I appreciate his willingness to call balls and strikes.
Oh yeah, last night we were till at 4 a.m.
Yes.
How many votes was that?
Too many. I mean,
35 votes.
We kept being
and
like,
I voted every single Democrat vote last night.
Did.
There was a vote-a-rama for those of you who don't know, and so they were up all night and still made it here.
That's
so
right.
Kudos to both of you.
And I also think, you think about this, all-nighters, like if you pulled one of those, it was likely like to study for a test in college or maybe doing something you don't want to talk about. But when we are doing that, I often think like, I mean, it's hard. All night, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I think we have colleagues that have more life experience than us. And I wonder how in the world they make it through, but they do. They push through.
Well, we appreciate you guys pushing through to be here after an all-nighter. As you know, Senator Fetterman, the Pennsylvania Republican Party chairman, actually said last week he'd consider supporting your reelection in 2028 if you became a Republican, if you switched parties. You haven't said definitively that you're running for re-election unless you'd like to announce it here. But would you ever consider running for office as a Republican, Senator?
As much as I'm friends with a lot of Republicans, including my parents, I'm not a Republican, and so like that's what it's really was. That's the truth. People always say, we have to be a big tent party. So it's really strange. I'm mystified by it. If I'm more popular, I've had Republican friends in my state say, you're actually more popular than I am, with our people. And how a guy that votes a 93% Dem line has that happen. I'm mystified by it. I can't explain it, but I think that demonstrates. I don't know, but that's here we are. But I absolutely do know as a Democrat how to pay the bills, and you can win. And actually, people have won elections by having campaigns saying "F Trump" repeatedly, again and again and again and again. And that's become common. That's commonplace. So, I know that, but that means that I refuse to engage in that because I think it's more important to engage everybody and things we can agree, things that we can disagree on, but we'll do it in a respectful way. And we've all forgot that we're all Americans.
And are you running for re-election, Senator? Are you running for re-election?
You before backstage, you're just like, it's going to be really easy and just.
That's easy.
I don't trust the media right
That's
here
easy.
now.
That's
so
easy.
yes.
Let me ask you this.
Oh, that's
I've
good.
never talked about running for president, but would you support Senator Fetterman if he were to say, I'm going to run for president?
Look,
I'll vote for whatever she does next. Although I'm not in Alabama or whatever. But
there you go. Look, I just said it. I mean, he's a breath of fresh air for everybody. And I hope that people take a step back. He just said, you said you vote with Democrats 93% of the time. But yet the few things where he is voting with Republicans are things like Israel and that used to be mainstream, in the Democratic Party, or even like keeping the government open. Thank you for continuing to vote to keep the government open.
Yeah, well, I mean, if anyone here there's married, and we are, if you agree with your partner 93% of the time,
that's a home run.
Yeah, that'd be an amazing
That's a home
run. I'm not getting anything close to that in mind.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Senator Fetterman, would you support Senator Britt if she were to announce she's running for president one day?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I've described this in interviews that they're America's family.
We're gonna
the big unit. That's the big unit.
So he calls my husband the big unit. So you know how large John is. I mean, John takes up a door frame, right?
Yeah, he is. He's
and Wesley is a large man
too. Nicest guy.
And so they look basically eye to eye. And John calls him the big unit. And when we text together, John trademarks the big unit. And there's rarely a conversation, even if it's a very serious one that we have to have about policy or where, I'm like, hey, explain this to me. Or he said, well, what about this? And what he usually always starts it with, how's the big unit?
Well, we are out of time. But before I let you go, my colleague Lester Holt is about to interview NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman and former astronaut Suni Williams. So I have to ask both of you. Senator Britt, would you ever go to space if you had the opportunity?
Gosh. Oh, wow. I wasn't ready for that. If somebody gave me the chance. I mean, that was the most incredible thing
it was.
Watch. And I loved watching America be unified around Artemis, around this mission. And we were proud in Alabama. So much of that work is done at Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. And so as we were cheering them on, we were also cheering on the men and women that made that possible, knowing how they worked countless. And, many people, I appreciate Administrator Isaacman for rolling in the time and saying, no, we're going to do this now and we're going to do it more often because there's a lot of work to be done and we're going to continue to lead when it comes to space, and Alabama's proud to be a part of it. So, yeah, we should go together. What do you think?
You guys should go together. Senator Fetterman, would you be on board?
Well, I saw the numbers on NASA. That should be 100% who supports NASA. Yep. I mean, it's a remarkable thing. But now remind people too. I saw that 10% of Americans believe we never were to the moon. 10%. I mean, that's part of misinformation, and that's a serious problem in our society right now. Misinformation that used to become propaganda from countries like in Russia, but now we have that, and that's another reason why social media is dangerous.
And would you go to the moon? And what do you think was so unified
Would I
about
go to the
that
moon?
moment?
I don't think they have 4XL, in a suit.
Yeah, they said the size of that thing, John, was like the size of a minivan.
Yeah.
So that may be a little cramped.
All right, guys.
No, I don't think I have to worry about it, honestly. Yeah.
Well, this was an extraordinary conversation. We can't thank you enough. It's so important to hear your bipartisan message, and we really appreciate it.
And thank you for letting us do this, because I think America needs to see more of this. While we disagree on a number of issues, I think being able to respect someone who you don't agree with is something we need to bring back, and I think it gives people both hope and permission to do it in their own life.
Senator Fetterman, any last thoughts?
We have to find a way to get together. Honestly, I wish I had, I tell people I constantly, where I go and I do most of the shopping for my family, I tell people it's like, hey, it's okay, you should relax, It's much worse than you think, in Washington, D.C. And that's the thing.
That's good.
I'm concerned about that. And so all I can be is an example and to remind people that I think is a better way forward. And that's why I'm excited to have a conversation like this.
Senators Fetterman and Britt, thank you both so much.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.